I'll never forget the moment I discovered my parents had sold my grandmother's lake house without telling me. I was standing in the grocery store reaching for pasta sauce when my sister Madison called giggling about her dream wedding venue. "Thanks for the wedding present, Evie," she squealed. My hand froze midair. What wedding present? The silence that followed told me everything. The lake house Grandma left specifically to me, the place where I'd spent every summer learning to fish by her side, was gone. My fingers trembled as I abandoned my shopping cart right there in aisle 7. The jar of pasta sauce rolled across the floor, but I barely noticed. Madison's voice continued chirping through the phone about flower arrangements and catering options while my world tilted on its axis. "Madison, what are you talking about? What wedding present?" My voice came out sharper than intended. "Oh, come on, don't play coy. Mom and Dad told me you agreed to let them sell the lake house for my wedding. Preston and I are so grateful." The fluorescent lights above seemed to buzz louder as rage built in my chest. "I never agreed to anything." "But Mom said—" Madison's voice faltered. "She said you signed the papers 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks ago. I'd been working double shifts at the hospital covering for colleagues out with the flu. 3 weeks ago, I hadn't spoken to my parents in over a month because they'd been giving me the cold shoulder after my divorce finalized. I ended the call without another word and drove straight to my apartment, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The moment I got inside, I dialed my mother, Charlotte's number. "Hello, sweetie, I was just thinking about you," she answered in that fake, cheerful voice she used when she knew she'd done something wrong. "You sold Grandma's lake house." It wasn't a question. "Now, Evelyn, before you get upset. Before I get upset, you sold my house, the house Grandma left to me." I heard my father Robert's voice in the background asking what was wrong. Charlotte must have put me on speaker because his booming voice filled my ear next. "Evelyn, be reasonable. Madison needs this for her wedding. You know how important this is to her." "Important, Dad, that house wasn't yours to sell. How did you even do this?" The pause that followed told me everything. They'd done something illegal, something they thought they could get away with. "We had Bradley look at the paperwork," Charlotte finally said, referring to their lawyer friend who'd been helping them with shady deals for years. "He said since we were the executors of Grandma's estate, we had certain rights." "You forged my signature." The realization hit me like ice water. "You committed fraud." "Such dramatic words, Evelyn. We're family. We did what was best for everyone." "Best for everyone you stole from me." "The house was just sitting there empty," Robert interjected. "Madison's wedding to Preston is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Do you know who his family is? The Ashworths practically own half of Connecticut. This marriage will elevate our entire family." I sank onto my couch, my head spinning. "How much—" "What?" "How much did you sell it for?" $340,000, Charlotte said quietly. $340,000. The house was worth at least $400,000, maybe more with the recent development in the area. But that wasn't even the point. That house was my sanctuary, my connection to Grandma Helen, the only person in my family who'd ever truly understood me. "And Madison's wedding costs?" $230,000? But Evelyn, you should see the venue, the Fairmont Country Club, 500 guests, a reception that will be talked about for years. "What about the rest of the money?" Another pause. "We've had some expenses, retirement planning. You know how it is." Retirement planning, code for their latest scheme or luxury purchase. I thought about my childhood room now, probably filled with Madison's wedding catalogs and sample invitations. I thought about all the times I'd paid my own way while they poured money into Madison's every whim. "I'm calling a lawyer," I said. "Evelyn Marie Thompson, you will do no such thing." Charlotte's voice turned sharp. "Bradley assured us you wouldn't pursue legal action against your own family." Think about what people will say. I don't care what people say. You stole from me. We didn't steal anything. We redistributed family assets for the greater good. Besides, you were planning to waste your life hiding in that old house after your divorce. This forces you to move forward. The cruelty of her words shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. They knew I'd been planning to move to the lake house to heal after my marriage fell apart. They knew it was my safe place where Grandma Helen had taught me to be strong and independent. And they'd taken it anyway. I want to see the paperwork, I demanded. All of it. There's no need for that. What's done is done. Madison's already put deposits down everywhere. The invitations are being printed as we speak. Then Madison can figure out how to pay for it herself. How can you be so selfish? Robert's voice boomed. Your sister has found true love with a successful man from a good family. Don't ruin this for her because you're bitter about your own failed marriage. The line went dead in my hand. They'd hung up on me. My own parents had stolen my inheritance, insulted my pain, and then hung up on me. I sat in the silence of my apartment, the weight of their betrayal settling over me like a heavy blanket. But underneath the hurt, something else was building. Determination. Grandma Helen hadn't raised me to be a victim. I pulled out my laptop and started researching real estate attorneys. Bradley might be their friend, but he wasn't the only lawyer in town. As I scrolled through options, one thought kept running through my mind: they'd stolen from the wrong sister. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. I had a feeling I was going to need the time. What I didn't know yet was just how deep this betrayal went, or how many lies I was about to uncover. But Grandma Helen had taught me well, when someone tries to take what's yours, you don't just take it back. You take everything. The drive to my parents' house took 35 minutes, but it felt like hours. Every red light gave me more time to think about what I was going to say, how I was going to handle this face-to-face confrontation. By the time I pulled into their driveway, my anger had crystallized into something harder, sharper. The first thing I noticed was the cars. My parents' reliable Honda and Toyota had been replaced by a gleaming white Mercedes and a black BMW. They sat in the driveway like accusations proof of where some of that retirement planning money had gone. I didn't bother knocking. The key under the fake rock had been there since I was 12, though I noticed they'd upgraded to one of those expensive hide-a-key rocks that cost $50 at the home improvement store. Everything about this house screamed new money, from the professional landscaping to the freshly painted shutters. Evelyn. Charlotte emerged from the kitchen wearing a designer apron I'd never seen before. What are you doing here? It's the middle of a workday. We need to talk now. Well, this is unexpected. Madison and Preston are here going over seating charts. Perhaps we could schedule... Perfect. I have some questions for Madison, too. I pushed past her into the dining room where Madison sat surrounded by wedding paraphernalia. Sample centerpieces covered every surface, and Preston lounged in Dad's chair like he already owned the place. They both looked up as I entered, Madison's face flushing pink. Evie, I'm so sorry about yesterday. I had no idea you didn't know about the house. Really? You had no idea that I hadn't agreed to give you a $300,000 wedding gift? Preston stood adjusting his expensive suit jacket. Now, Evelyn, there's no need for hostility. We're all family here, or will be soon. I'd met Preston Ashworth exactly 3 times, and each time he'd made my skin crawl. He had that particular brand of confidence that came from never having worked for anything in his life. We're not family, Preston, and even if we were, that doesn't give anyone the right to steal from me. Steal is such an ugly word, he said, his smile never wavering. I prefer to think of it as resource reallocation. Besides, from what I understand, you weren't utilizing the property. Utilizing the property? It's not a corporate asset. It's my grandmother's house. Robert appeared from his study, probably drawn by the raised voices. "Evelyn, you're making a scene." "Good. Maybe a scene is what this family needs." Madison stood up, tears already forming in her eyes. She'd always been able to cry on command, a skill that had gotten her out of trouble countless times growing up. "Evie, please. This is my one chance at happiness. You had your wedding. Now it's my turn." "My wedding." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean the courthouse ceremony I paid for myself while you were at spa weekend in Scottsdale?" "That was your choice," Charlotte interjected. "You insisted on that small affair with that Daniel." "Because I was paying for nursing school, which, by the way, I'm still paying off while you're dropping $250,000 on one party." Preston cleared his throat. "Perhaps I can offer a solution. My family has connections in real estate. I'm sure we could help you find a nice apartment downtown. Something suitable for a single woman." The condescension in his voice made my teeth clench. "I don't need your help finding housing. I had housing. A house that belonged to me." "But you weren't living there," Madison whined. "It was just sitting empty while I needed a venue. The country club required full payment up front, and the catering and the flowers and my dress." "Your dress. How much was your dress?" Madison looked away. "That's not important." $30,000, Charlotte said proudly. "It's a custom Vera Wang. Madison looks like a princess in it." $30,000 for a dress she'd wear once. I thought about my own wedding dress, a simple $200 sundress I'd bought on clearance and worn again to hospital fundraisers. "And you thought it was okay to pay for all this with my inheritance?" "We're investing in Madison's future," Robert said firmly. "The connections from this marriage will benefit everyone." "How exactly will Madison marrying into money benefit me?" "Don't be naive, Evelyn. The Ashworths have influence everywhere. Hospital board positions, charity foundations, country club memberships. Things I've never wanted or needed. You sold my sanctuary for status symbols." I walked over to the wall where our family photos hung. There was Madison at her college graduation, Madison at her sorority formal Madison, with Preston at various charity galas. I had to look hard to find myself one photo from my nursing school graduation, partially hidden behind a larger frame of Madison's engagement portrait. "You know what Grandma Helen used to tell me?" I asked, not turning around. "She said you two always favored Madison because she was easier. She didn't ask questions, didn't challenge you, didn't insist on making her own way." "Mother was getting senile toward the end," Charlotte said coldly. "She said many things that weren't true." "Is that why you've been stealing from her estate for years?" The room went silent. Even Madison's performative sniffling stopped. "What are you talking about?" Robert's voice had lost its authoritative boom. "I've been doing some research. Funny how the executor fees on Grandma's estate seem inflated. Funny how certain accounts seem to have been drained before they made it to the beneficiaries." "You're making wild accusations," Charlotte said, but her hand trembled as she adjusted her apron. "Am I? Should we get a forensic accountant to verify that?" Preston stepped forward. "I think we all need to calm down. Evelyn, you're obviously emotional about your recent divorce." "Don't!" I turned to face him. "Don't you dare try to manipulate me by bringing up my divorce. This has nothing to do with Daniel and everything to do with criminal fraud." "Criminal?" Madison gasped. "Evie, you can't be serious. There are parents." "Parents who forged my signature to steal my inheritance." "We didn't forge anything," Robert said, but he couldn't meet my eyes. "Bradley handled all the paperwork properly." "Then you won't mind if my attorney reviews it." "Your attorney?" Charlotte's voice pitched higher. "You actually hired an attorney?" "Did you think I wouldn't? You stole a house from me." Madison sank back into her chair, the tears flowing freely now. "You're going to ruin everything. My wedding, my future, my happiness." "No, Madison. They ruined it when they decided to fund your fantasy with my inheritance." I headed for the door but stopped when I noticed something. The hallway leading to the bedrooms had been redecorated. Where once there had been photos of both Madison and me now, there was what looked like a shrine to Madison's engagement. Professional photos, newspaper clippings about the upcoming society wedding, even a framed copy of the engagement announcement from the Hartford Courier. "What happened to my room?" I asked, though I already knew. "We converted it to Wedding Planning Central," Charlotte said defensively. "You haven't lived here in over a decade." I pushed open the door to what used to be my sanctuary. Gone were any traces of my childhood. Instead, the room overflowed with wedding samples, planning binders, and boxes of invitations. My old desk held a computer displaying spreadsheets of guest lists and vendor contracts. On the wall where my nursing school acceptance letter once hung was a blown-up photo of the Fairmont Country Club. "You erased me," I said quietly. "You literally erased me from this house." "Don't be dramatic," Charlotte said. "We kept your things. They're in boxes in the garage." In boxes in the garage, like I was already dead to them. I walked back through the house, seeing it with new eyes. The expensive renovations, the luxury upgrades, the careful removal of any evidence that they had 2 daughters instead of 1. They hadn't just stolen my house. They'd written me out of the family narrative. "You want to know the really pathetic part?" I said, pausing at the front door. "If you'd really asked me, I might have helped with the wedding. Not 200,000 worth, but something. Because despite everything, I loved you. All of you." "Loved," Madison whispered. "Past tense." I looked at my sister, really looked at her. 28 years old and still playing the baby, still letting our parents buy her way through life. About to marry a man who saw her as an acquisition rather than a partner. "Past tense," I confirmed. "You want this fantasy wedding so badly? Fine. But you're going to pay for it with your own crimes, not mine." As I walked to my car, Preston called after me. "You know, Evelyn, my family could make things very difficult for you. We have connections at every hospital in the state." I turned back, meeting his cold eyes. "Is that a threat?" He smiled, all teeth and no warmth. "Just a reminder that actions have consequences." "Yes," I agreed. "They do. Tell your Uncle Harold I'll be in touch about his purchase of stolen property." The smile slipped from his face. "What?" "How do you know about Uncle Harold?" But I was already in my car, pulling away from the house that no longer felt like home. As I drove, I thought about consequences. My parents had taught me about those, just not in the way they'd intended. They'd shown me what happened when you trusted the wrong people, when you assumed family meant safety, when you believed love was unconditional. Now it was time for me to teach them about consequences too. Grandma Helen would have been proud. Jennifer Martinez's law office occupied the 3rd floor of a restored Victorian building downtown. Unlike the flashy firms that advertised on billboards, her practice had built its reputation on discretion and devastating effectiveness. The receptionist had squeezed me in for an emergency consultation after I'd mentioned fraud and stolen inheritance in the same sentence. "Let me make sure I understand," Jennifer said, her dark eyes sharp behind designer glasses. She'd been taking notes for 20 minutes while I laid out the whole story. "Your grandmother's will specifically left the lake house to you, not your parents or sister. Your parents were executors, but sold the property without your knowledge or consent. They forged my signature. It has to be forgery because I never signed anything." Jennifer leaned back in her leather chair. "Did your grandmother's will include any specific language about the property?" I pulled out the copy I'd managed to find in my apartment. Grandma had given me a sealed envelope years ago telling me to keep it safe. I'd almost forgotten about it until yesterday. "Here, page 12, section 4. I pointed to the relevant paragraph. The property located at 18 Lakeshore Drive shall pass directly to my granddaughter Evelyn Marie Thompson, to be hers absolutely and forever, with the sincere hope that she will find peace and purpose within its walls as I have." "That's beautifully specific," Jennifer murmured, "and legally airtight. Your parents had no authority to sell this property. Zero." Relief flooded through me. "So we can get it back?" "That depends on several factors. First, we need to see the sales documents. Then we need to investigate the buyer. If they knew about the fraud, we have a stronger case." "The buyer is Harold Ashworth, Preston's uncle." Jennifer's eyebrows rose. "Preston Ashworth as in your sister's fiancé?" "The same." "That's interesting. Very interesting. Family connections might indicate prior knowledge of the ownership issue." She made another note. "I'm going to need a private investigator for this. I recommend Thomas Wright. He's thorough and specializes in financial fraud." "Whatever it takes." Jennifer studied me for a moment. "This could get expensive and ugly. Are you prepared for that?" "They stole my grandmother's house to pay for a party. I'm prepared." 2 hours later, I sat across from Thomas Wright in a coffee shop near the courthouse. He looked nothing like the private investigators on TV, middle-aged, slightly balding, wearing a polo shirt and khakis. He looked like someone's dad, which was probably why he was so good at getting people to talk. "Family fraud cases are always the messiest," he said, reviewing the notes Jennifer had sent him. "People get emotional, secrets come out. Are you sure you want to go down this road?" "I'm sure." "All right then. I'll start with the property records and work backward. The sale happened 3 weeks ago, you said, according to my parents, but they've lied about everything else." Thomas nodded. "I'll verify the exact date and all parties involved. I'll also look into your parents' financial history. If they've been stealing from the estate, there will be a pattern." He was right about the pattern. Within 3 days, Thomas had uncovered a web of financial manipulation that made my stomach turn. We met at his office this time, a nondescript space above a dry cleaner. He spread documents across his desk like evidence in a crime scene, which I supposed it was. "Your parents have been busy," he said. "Let's start with the house sale. It closed 4 weeks ago, not 3. The listed price was $450,000. They told me $340,000. That's what they reported to you. But here's where it gets interesting. 2 weeks before the sale, they took out a home equity loan against the property for $50,000. How it wasn't their property. Remember Bradley, their lawyer friend? He notarized documents claiming they had power of attorney over your assets due to your emotional instability following your divorce. My hands clenched into fists. Emotional instability. It's a common tactic in elder financial abuse, but using it against an adult child is creative. I'll give them that. Thomas pulled out another document. They've been draining your grandmother's accounts for 3 years. Small amounts at first, 1,000 here, 2,000 there. Always just under the reporting limits. How much total? From what I can trace so far, about 75,000. Possibly more if they had access to investment accounts I haven't found yet. I thought about all the times Charlotte had complained about money, how they couldn't afford to help with my student loans, how tight things were since Dad's early retirement. All lies. What about Harold Ashworth? Did he know the house wasn't theirs to sell? Thomas smiled grimly. This is where it gets really interesting. Harold Ashworth paid $450,000 in cash. No mortgage, no inspection contingency. The sale closed in 2 weeks, which is almost impossible unless you're waiving all due diligence. So he knew. Oh, he knew. But it's worse than that. Thomas pulled out aerial photos of the lake property. See this area behind your grandmother's house, 10 acres of pristine lakefront. Harold Ashworth has been trying to buy it for 5 years to build a luxury resort. Your grandmother refused every offer. She never mentioned that to me. Check this out." He handed me a letter dated 2 years ago. Grandma's shaky handwriting filled the page. "Mr. Ashworth, as I have stated numerous times, this land will never be developed. It belongs to my granddaughter Evelyn, who understands its true value lies not in profit, but in preservation. Your continued harassment is unwelcome. Do not contact me again." "She knew," I whispered. "She knew they'd try to take it." "There's more. I found this in the county planning office." Thomas showed me architectural drawings. "Plans for a 40-room boutique hotel and marina. Submitted by Ashworth Development 6 months ago pending land acquisition. But they didn't own the land." "No, but your parents apparently promised they could deliver it. Look at this email I retrieved from public records in a lawsuit filing." The email was from Robert to Harold Ashworth. "Don't worry about Evelyn. Charlotte and I will handle her. She's always been the difficult one. Once Madison marries Preston, she won't risk alienating the family. The property will be yours by spring." Spring. They wrote this last December. They've been planning this for months. "At least. And there's something else you need to know about Bradley the lawyer who helped them." Thomas pulled out a business card, Bradley Hutchins, attorney at law, but there was a red stamp across it, license suspended. He was disbarred 2 years ago for embezzlement. He's not even legally allowed to practice law. So every document he prepared is fraudulent. Your parents either didn't know or didn't care. I spent the next hour going through everything Thomas had found. Bank statements showing mysterious deposits to my parents' accounts, emails between Preston and his uncle discussing the investment opportunity, photos of my parents meeting with Harold at the country club where Madison's reception would be held. "There's one more thing," Thomas said as I prepared to leave. "I did some digging into Preston's background. He's not quite the golden boy he appears to be." "What do you mean?" 3 broken engagements in 5 years. Each time his family found ways to financially devastate the young woman's family after the relationship ended. Lawsuits, business problems suddenly called loans. The Ashworths don't like being told no. And Madison has no idea. Your sister sees what she wants to see, but I have contact information for 2 of Preston's exes if you want to talk to them. I took the paper with their numbers. "Do you have enough for Jennifer to move forward?" "More than enough. Your parents and the Ashworths conspired to commit fraud. Multiple counts. This could actually result in criminal charges if you want to pursue that route." Did I want my parents in jail? The thought made me feel sick. But then I remembered them laughing about me checking my mail. Remembered Preston's threats about ruining my career. Remembered the empty space where my childhood room used to be. "Get me everything," I said. "Every document, every email, every shady deal. I want it all." As I drove back to my apartment, my phone rang. "Madison." "Evie, please. Can we talk just us sisters?" "Are you calling to apologize?" "I'm calling because Preston is really upset. He says you're trying to ruin his uncle's business deal." "The business deal where they stole my house? It's not stealing if Mom and Dad sold it." "Madison, it is literally stealing. They had no right to sell it." "Well, Preston says possession is 9/10 of the law." "Preston is wrong. And Madison, you might want to ask him about Amanda, Sophia, and Catherine." "Who are they?" "His previous fiancés. The ones whose families he destroyed when they wouldn't marry him." "You're making that up. You're just jealous because I found true love and you couldn't keep Daniel." The line went dead. She'd hung up on me just like our parents. It was becoming a family tradition. I poured myself a glass of wine and started organizing the documents Thomas had given me. Grandma Helen's journal sat on my coffee table and I opened it randomly. "Evelyn will understand someday." One entry read, "She has my spine, my stubbornness. Charlotte never forgave me for that, for seeing myself in Evelyn instead of her, but Evelyn will need that strength. They'll test her, try to break her down. The lake house will be her sanctuary as it was mine, and when they come for it, and they will come, she'll know what to do. Somehow she'd known exactly what would happen, and she'd trusted me to handle it. I picked up my phone and called Jennifer Martinez. "I've reviewed everything Thomas sent," she said without preamble. "We have grounds for both civil and criminal action. Are you ready to file?" "Yes, but I want to do something first. Can you prepare a package of all the evidence, something that shows exactly what they did and what the consequences will be?" "You want to give them a chance to make this right?" "No, I want them to know exactly how thoroughly they've been caught. I want them to check their mail and have their faces freeze when they see what's coming." Jennifer chuckled. "I like your style. I'll have a courier deliver it tomorrow. What's the address?" I gave her my parents' address, then added, "Send copies to Preston Ashworth and his uncle too. Let them all open their mail together." After I hung up, I sat in the gathering darkness of my apartment thinking about consequences and justice. Tomorrow the real fireworks would begin. Tonight I raised my glass to the empty room. "This one's for you, Grandma Helen. I hope I make you proud." The registered letters were delivered at 10:30 in the morning. I know because Madison called me at 10:31, shrieking so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "What did you do? Preston's uncle is here and he's screaming at Dad. Mom is crying. There are papers everywhere." "I suggest you read them," I said calmly. "Every page? Maybe then you'll understand what they did." "Evie, please. The wedding is in 3 weeks. Preston says if this isn't fixed, he'll what Madison call off the wedding, show you who he really is. You don't understand I love him. Do you, or do you love the idea of him? The status, the money, the fairy tale." "How dare you!" But I heard Preston's voice in the background, sharp and angry, and Madison hung up. 20 minutes later, my phone exploded with calls. Charlotte, Robert, numbers. I didn't recognize that were probably the Ashworths. I let them all go to voicemail and drove to Jennifer's office for our strategy meeting. "They've already lawyered up," Jennifer informed me as soon as I sat down. Robert called Bradley, who apparently told them he couldn't represent them since he's disbarred. So they've hired Marcus Fitzgerald. "Is he good?" "He's expensive, which tells me they're taking this seriously. He's already called asking for a meeting to resolve this family misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding. They stole from me." "I agree, but we need to be strategic. I've filed the civil suit for fraud conversion and breach of fiduciary duty. The criminal complaint is ready to go to the DA's office. That's our nuclear option." "What do you recommend?" "Let's see what they offer. Sometimes the threat of criminal prosecution motivates people to make things right quickly." The meeting was scheduled for the next day at Fitzgerald's office. I dressed carefully, my best professional suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. I wanted to look like what I was, a serious professional who wouldn't be pushed around. The conference room was all dark wood and leather designed to intimidate. My parents were already there. Charlotte dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, Robert staring at the table. Preston sat next to Madison, his hand possessively on her shoulder. Harold Ashworth occupied the head of the table like he owned the place. "Evelyn," Marcus Fitzgerald stood as I entered with Jennifer. "Thank you for coming. I think we can clear this up quickly." "I doubt that," Jennifer said smoothly. "But we're listening." Fitzgerald cleared his throat. "My clients are prepared to offer a settlement. $50,000 for you to drop all claims and sign a release agreeing the sale was valid." Jennifer laughed. Actually laughed. $50,000. They stole a $450,000 property, and you're offering $50,000? "It's a generous offer considering Evelyn abandoned the property for years," Harold Ashworth interjected. "Maintenance taxes, upkeep that costs money. Costs that were paid from my grandmother's estate, which my clients were stealing from," Jennifer shot back. Did you really think we wouldn't find the paper trail? These accusations are outrageous, Robert finally spoke. We're her parents. We did what we thought was best. You committed fraud, I said quietly. You forged my signature. You lied about the sale price. You took out loans against my property. You stole from Grandma's estate for years. We were entitled to executor fees, Charlotte protested. Not $75,000 worth, not secret loans, not forged documents. I think, Preston said in his smooth voice, that Evelyn is letting her emotions about her recent divorce cloud her judgment. Perhaps if she took some time to consider how this affects Madison. Don't. I turned to him. Don't try to manipulate me. And Madison? You should ask Preston about his ex-fiancés. Ask him what happened to Amanda Morrison's father's construction business, or why Sophia Chen's family suddenly had their restaurant shut down by health inspectors, or how Catherine Wells's mother lost her job at the hospital. Preston's face went cold. Those situations were completely unrelated to my personal relationships. Were they? Thomas Wright has statements from all three women saying otherwise. Who's Thomas Wright? Madison asked in a small voice. The private investigator I hired. He's been very thorough. Harold Ashworth leaned forward. Let's cut to the chase. What do you want? I want my house back. I want full restitution for everything stolen from the estate. I want the fraudulent sale voided. Impossible, Harold said flatly. I've already begun development prep. Trees have been cleared, surveys completed. On stolen property. That's your problem, not mine. Marcus Fitzgerald held up a hand. Let's all calm down. Evelyn, surely you understand that unwinding this sale would hurt many people. Your sister's wedding venue has been paid for. Vendors have been contracted. Your parents could face serious financial consequences. They should have thought of that before they committed fraud. Think about Madison, Charlotte pleaded. This is her chance at happiness, her dream wedding. Don't destroy that out of spite. I looked at my sister. Really looked at her. 28 years old, designer clothes, perfect makeup, enormous engagement ring, and absolutely no understanding of what had been done to make her fantasy possible. Madison, do you know why Grandma left me the lake house? She shrugged. Because you were her favorite. We all knew that. No, because I spent every summer there with her. Because when she got sick, I took time off from nursing school to care for her. Because I was the one who sat with her through chemo, who helped her plan her final wishes, who promised to preserve the land she loved. I had pageants, Madison said defensively. Commitments. I couldn't just drop everything. You couldn't drop anything, ever, for anyone but yourself. That's not fair. Isn't it? When was the last time you visited Grandma's grave? Madison's silence was answer enough. I go every month. I continued. I tell her about my life, my work, my plans. I promised her I'd take care of the lake house, and now I'm going to keep that promise. By destroying your family, Robert demanded. I'm not destroying anything. You did that when you chose greed over integrity. Jennifer touched my arm. We should go. Mr. Fitzgerald, you have our demands. Full restitution or we proceed with criminal charges. As we stood to leave, Preston grabbed my wrist. You have no idea who you're messing with. My family has connections everywhere. Your little nursing career could disappear overnight. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then met his eyes. Touch me again, and assault charges get added to the list. And Preston. Your family's connections won't matter when you're under federal investigation for wire fraud. His hand dropped. Madison gasped. Federal investigation. Oh, didn't they tell you using electronic communications to coordinate a fraud scheme across state lines makes it a federal crime? The FBI tends to be interested in that sort of thing. It was a bluff we hadn't contacted federal authorities yet, but the look of panic on Harold Ashworth's face was worth it. Outside the building, Jennifer smiled. You handled that well, especially the federal investigation mention. We should probably make that threat real. Can we? Absolutely. The emails Thomas found between your parents and Harold Ashworth crossed state lines. That's wire fraud. I have a contact at the FBI who specializes in financial crimes. Do it. Over the next week, the pressure campaign intensified. My parents tried everything. Charlotte called crying about how I was breaking her heart. Robert left voicemails about family loyalty and forgiveness. Madison sent text after text about her ruined wedding. Then the Ashworths' campaign started. Suddenly, my work schedule was being questioned. Anonymous complaints appeared about my patient care. My car tires were slashed in the hospital parking lot. Someone called my apartment complex claiming I was running a drug den. But for every attack, Jennifer and Thomas found more evidence. They discovered Preston had a pattern of this behavior with his exes. They found Harold had bribed a county inspector to fast-track permits for the lake property development. They uncovered a web of financial crimes that went far beyond my situation. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Daniel, my ex-husband. "Evelyn, I need to talk to you," he said when he called out of the blue. "It's about your parents and Preston." We met at a neutral location, a busy restaurant downtown. Daniel looked better than he had during our final months together. The divorce had been mutual, born from growing apart rather than malice. We'd remained civil if distant. "I was at the club last Christmas," he began. "You know the one my boss belongs to. I overheard your parents talking to Preston and his uncle. They were discussing the lake house." "Last Christmas, but Grandma had only been gone 6 months then." "Exactly. They were already planning this. I recorded part of it." He pulled out his phone. I don't know why. Something about it felt wrong. Maybe because I knew how much that house meant to you. The recording was grainy but clear enough. Robert's voice. "Evelyn won't fight us. She never does. Too worried about keeping the peace. Preston, and if she does, Charlotte. She won't, especially once Madison announces the engagement. Evelyn would never ruin her sister's happiness. Harold, I need guarantees. This development is worth millions. Robert, you'll get your land. We'll make sure of it." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked Daniel. I wasn't sure if I should get involved, but when I heard about what they did, I couldn't stay silent. "You don't deserve this, Ev. Whatever issues we had, you're a good person. They're counting on that goodness to let them get away with it." "Not anymore," Daniel testified in the emergency hearing Jennifer had requested. The judge, a stern woman named Patricia Hawthorne, listened to the recording with increasingly narrow eyes. "This evidence suggests a criminal conspiracy dating back months," she said. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, do you have any explanation?" Charlotte sobbed. Robert blustered. Their lawyer tried to object to the recording's admissibility, but the damage was done. "I'm issuing a temporary restraining order," Judge Hawthorne announced. "All development on the property ceases immediately. The assets from the sale are to be frozen pending a full investigation. And Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I strongly suggest you seek criminal defense attorneys. This court will be referring this matter to the district attorney's office." Madison wailed. Preston stormed out. Harold Ashworth looked like he'd swallowed glass. But I felt something else entirely vindication. Outside the courthouse, snow had begun to fall. Jennifer grinned at me. "That went better than expected. Daniel's recording is a game changer." "It's not over," I reminded her. "They'll fight back harder now." "Let them. We have truth on our side, and a really angry judge." As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You think you've won, but this is far from over. The Ashworths always get what they want." I deleted it and kept walking. Grandma Helen used to say that the best response to a bully was to stand firm and let them exhaust themselves against your resolve. The battle was far from over. But for the first time since Madison's phone call in the grocery store, I felt like I was winning. The emergency hearing had been on a Tuesday. By Friday, my life had turned into a soap opera that even I couldn't have predicted. It started with a phone call from Sarah Coleman at First National Bank. "Miss Thompson, I'm calling from our fraud investigation department. We've discovered some unusual activity connected to your Social Security number." My stomach dropped. "What kind of activity?" "3 credit cards opened in your name over the past 2 months, all maxed out. The charges appear to be wedding-related venues catering flowers. Were you aware of these accounts?" "No, oh my God, no." "I thought not. The applications were filed online, but the IP address traces back to a residential address." She read off my parents' address. "We'll need you to file a police report and sign fraud affidavits." 3 credit cards, maxed out, in my name. How much are we talking about? Collectively $47,000. I sank onto my couch phone, trembling in my hand. They'd stolen my house, my inheritance, and now my credit. My own parents had committed identity theft. "Miss Thompson, are you still there?" "Yes, I'll be at the police station within the hour." After filing the police report, I sat in my car in the parking lot trying to process this new betrayal. That's when Madison called. "Evie, I need to see you, please. Just us. No lawyers, no Preston. Please." Something in her voice was different. Broken. "Where?" "The coffee shop on Main Street in an hour." Madison was already there when I arrived, and I barely recognized her. Her usually perfect makeup was smeared, her designer clothes wrinkled. She looked like she'd been crying for days. "Evie, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "For which part?" "The house, the credit cards, the campaign to ruin my career." She looked confused. "Credit cards. Mom and Dad opened 3 credit cards in my name. Max them out on your wedding expenses." The color drained from Madison's face. "They said they had savings. They said they'd been planning for my wedding for years. They lied, just like they lied about everything else." Madison stared into her coffee cup. "Preston's been lying too." "About what?" "Everything. I found out about his exes, what he did to their families. Evie, he's been cheating on me, with Brittany, my maid of honor." Part of me wanted to say I told you so, but the devastation on her face stopped me. "How did you find out?" "Mom knew, Dad knew, they've known for months. Brittany's pregnant." The coffee shop seemed to spin around me. "What?" 4 months pregnant. Preston was going to marry me, wait a year, then divorce me for some made-up reason. He and Brittany would get together publicly after a respectable time. My marriage was going to be a sham from day one. And Mom and Dad knew. They said it didn't matter, that being a first wife to an Ashworth was still better than anything else I could achieve, that I should be grateful for the opportunity. Now I understood the broken look in her eyes. It wasn't just Preston's betrayal, it was our parents' willingness to sell her into a loveless marriage for status. "Madison, I'm sorry, that's horrible." "Is it worse than what they did to you? They stole your inheritance. They destroyed your credit. They tried to ruin your career. At least they were only selling my future, not my past and present too." We sat in silence for a moment. 2 sisters realizing our parents had betrayed us both in different but equally devastating ways. "There's something else," Madison said quietly. "I went through Mom's desk looking for wedding contracts to cancel. I found Grandma's real will, not the one they showed us. The real one." She pulled out a manila envelope and slid it across the table. Inside was a document I'd never seen before, notarized and witnessed. I read it with growing amazement. Grandma hadn't just left me the lake house. She'd established a trust fund for both Madison and me, protected from our parents' access. $200,000 each to be released when we proved our parents' financial misconduct. "She knew," Madison whispered. She knew what they were and she tried to protect us. Why didn't she tell us? Read the letter. Behind the will was a sealed envelope addressed to both of us in Grandma's handwriting. With shaking hands, I opened it. My dear girls, if you're reading this, then your parents have finally shown their true colors. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive, but perhaps I can help from beyond. Evelyn, you have my strength and determination. The lake house is yours because you understand its true value, not monetary, but spiritual. It's a place of healing and truth. Madison, you have a gentle heart that others will try to exploit. Don't let them. You're stronger than you know. Your parents have been taking money from my accounts for years. I've documented everything with my lawyer, Margaret Chen. When you're ready to fight back, go to her. She has all the evidence you need. The trust funds are your freedom. Use them wisely. Remember, family isn't about blood. It's about love, respect, and protection. You two have each other. That's more than your parents ever gave you. All my love, Grandma Helen. I looked up to find Madison crying again, but these tears seemed different. Cleaner somehow. She tried to warn me about Preston, she said. Remember, she said a man who talks about his money isn't worth marrying. I thought she was just old-fashioned. She was trying to protect us both. What do we do now? We go see Margaret Chen. We find out exactly what Grandma knew, and then we bury them all. Madison nodded, then reached for my hand. I'm sorry, Evie, for everything. For letting them make me the golden child while they erased you. For being too selfish to see what they were doing. For choosing their lies over your truth. We were both victims, Madison, just in different ways. Not anymore. We drove to Margaret Chen's office together. She was expecting us somehow. A small, elegant woman in her 70s, she welcomed us with sad eyes. Helen said you'd come eventually. I'm sorry it took such extreme circumstances. The evidence she had was damning. Years of bank records showing systematic theft. Recordings of my parents discussing their plans to drain Grandma's estate. Documents proving they'd tried to change her will, but failed because Grandma had used specific legal protections. Your grandmother was a smart woman, Margaret explained. She knew your parents would try this, so she made sure everything was ironclad. The house to Evelyn, the trust funds protected, and this evidence preserved. Why didn't she confront them while she was alive? I asked. She hoped they'd change. Hope can make us do foolish things. But she also knew you girls would need each other when the truth came out. That's why the trust funds required proof of their misconduct. She wanted you working together. As we left Margaret's office with boxes of evidence, Madison's phone rang. Preston. Put it on speaker, I suggested. Where are you? His voice was cold, angry. Your parents are here freaking out. Something about frozen assets and criminal charges. What did you tell your sister? The truth, Madison said simply. I know about Brittany. I know about the baby. I know about all of it. Silence. Then, if you think you can just walk away from this wedding... I'm not walking away, Preston. I'm running. And if you or your family come near me or my sister again, I'll tell everyone exactly what kind of man you are. You wouldn't dare. No one would believe you. They'll believe the photos of you and Brittany that the private investigator took. They'll believe the pregnancy test results. They'll believe your ex-fiancés when they testify about your pattern of behavior. You little... Madison hung up. That felt good. It's going to get uglier, I warned. The Ashworths don't like losing. Neither do the Thompson sisters. That weekend we worked together to build our case. Madison canceled all the wedding vendors, though most deposits were lost to the maxed-out credit cards in my name. She moved out of our parents' house and into my apartment. For the first time in our lives, we were truly sisters. The revelation that changed everything came on Monday. Thomas Wright called with urgency in his voice. You need to see this immediately. Can you and Madison come to my office? We found him surrounded by financial documents, his usual calm demeanor replaced by visible excitement. Remember how your parents claimed they were entitled to executor fees? Well, I dug deeper into the estate administration. Your grandmother's estate was worth far more than anyone knew. How much more? I asked. Helen Thompson had been quietly investing for 50 years. Stock portfolios, bonds, real estate holdings in 3 states. The lake house was just the tip of the iceberg. He showed us the numbers. My mouth went dry. That's $8 million. Was. Your parents have been siphoning it off through shell companies and fake invoices. They've stolen approximately $3 million over the past 3 years. $3 million! Madison gasped. But they said we were middle class. They said they couldn't afford. They lied, Thomas said gently. They've been living off your grandmother's money while crying poverty to you both. Evelyn, they told you they couldn't help with nursing school while they were buying luxury cars. Madison, they convinced you to marry for money while sitting on millions. The scope of the betrayal was breathtaking. Every struggle, every sacrifice, every time they'd made us feel guilty for needing help, all of it had been lies. The good news, Thomas continued, is that this level of theft makes it a major federal case. The FBI will definitely be interested now. And with the evidence from Margaret Chen, we can prove every penny they took. I thought about all those double shifts I'd worked to pay for school. Madison thought about marrying a man who disgusted her for financial security. Both of us had been manipulated by parents who were secretly millionaires. There's one more thing, Thomas said. The trust funds your grandmother set up, they're not $200,000 each. With proper investment returns over the years, they're now worth $500,000 each. We sat in stunned silence. Grandma Helen hadn't just protected us, she'd set us free. What do we do? Madison asked in a small voice. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. No longer the spoiled princess our parents had created, but a young woman finding her strength. We'd both been victims of our parents' greed, just in different ways. Now we had a chance to reclaim not just money or property, but our lives. We fight, I said. We expose every lie, every theft, every betrayal. We get justice for Grandma Helen and for ourselves. And then we use what she left us to build the lives we actually want, not the ones they tried to force on us. Madison nodded, steel in her eyes. They created their own worst enemies. 2 daughters with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Grandma would be proud, I said. She is proud, Madison corrected. Wherever she is, she's watching us finally become the sisters she always wanted us to be. As we left Thomas's office with boxes of evidence, my phone buzzed. Charlotte texting, "Please don't do this. We're your parents. We love you." I showed it to Madison. She took my phone and typed the response. Love doesn't steal. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't sell your children's futures for status. See you in court. She hit send before I could stop her. Too harsh. No, I said, linking my arm through hers. Just harsh enough. The battle was entering its final phase, but for the first time we weren't fighting alone. We had each other, Grandma's wisdom, and the truth. It would have to be enough. The federal courthouse in Hartford was intimidating by design, all marble columns and imposing architecture. Madison and I walked in together, both dressed in conservative suits that Jennifer had approved. Our parents were already there with their new legal team. Apparently, Marcus Fitzgerald had withdrawn from the case when the FBI got involved. Charlotte looked like she'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. Her designer clothes couldn't hide the stress lines or the tremor in her hands. Robert sat beside her, his usual booming confidence reduced to sullen silence. They didn't look at us as we passed. The preliminary hearing was to determine if there was enough evidence to proceed with federal fraud charges. The prosecutor, Amanda Reeves, was a sharp woman in her 40s who'd specialized in financial crimes for 2 decades. The scope of this fraud is staggering, she began addressing the judge. Over 3 years, the defendants systematically stole over $3 million from an estate they were entrusted to protect. They forged documents, created shell companies, and ultimately attempted to sell property that belonged to their own daughter. Our parents' new attorney tried to argue it was a family dispute, not criminal fraud. Judge Morrison wasn't having it. Counselor forging signatures and stealing millions crosses well beyond family squabbles. I've reviewed the evidence. This case will proceed to trial. As we left the courtroom, Harold Ashworth was waiting in the hallway. His composure had cracked, revealing the cruel man beneath the polished exterior. "You've made a serious mistake," he told me. "That property development was worth $15 million in profits. You cost me that. The Ashworths have long memories." "So do the Thompsons," Madison said, stepping beside me. "And we have evidence of your bribery, your conspiracy, and your nephew's pattern of destroying families. How's that for a memory?" Harold's face purpled, but his lawyer pulled him away. Preston was nowhere to be seen. Rumor had it he'd fled to Europe when the FBI started investigating. Over the next 2 weeks, the dominoes fell rapidly. The FBI found more than even Thomas had uncovered. Our parents hadn't just stolen from Grandma's estate, they'd defrauded 3 other elderly relatives over the years. It was a pattern of elder abuse that turned my stomach. The day Charlotte and Robert were arrested was surreal. Federal agents led them out of their house in handcuffs while neighbors watched. The same neighbors who'd attended their fancy parties and admired their success. Madison and I watched from my car. She was crying, but I felt numb. "They did this to themselves," I reminded her. "I know, it's just, they're still our parents." "No, parents protect their children. They were just people who happened to raise us." The criminal case moved forward, but we also had the civil case to resolve. The lake house sale had been voided, but Harold Ashworth was fighting the return of the property. He'd already cleared trees and started foundation work for his hotel. The solution came from an unexpected source: public pressure. Madison, who'd learned about social media influence from her pageant days, started documenting our story online. 2 Sisters Against Greed went viral. Local news picked it up. Environmental groups got involved when they learned about the planned development on pristine lakefront. Soon, Harold Ashworth wasn't just fighting us, he was fighting public opinion. Protesters showed up at his other properties. The county planning board received thousands of letters opposing any development at the lake. His investors got nervous. 3 weeks after the arrest, his lawyer called Jennifer. "Mr. Ashworth is willing to restore the property and abandon all development claims." "In exchange for what?" Jennifer asked on speakerphone. "No further civil action against him." "No deal. He participated in fraud. He pays damages." 2 days of negotiation later, we had an agreement. Harold would pay $500,000 in damages and restore the property to its original state at his expense. He'd also face his own criminal charges for bribery and conspiracy. "Your grandmother would be proud," Jennifer said as we signed the settlement. "You didn't just win, you won big." But the hardest part was yet to come: the criminal trial of our parents. It lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks of evidence, testimonies, and revelations that made Madison and I question everything about our childhood. Had any of their love been real, or had we always been pawns in their schemes? Daniel testified about the Christmas conversation he'd recorded. Margaret Chen presented years of evidence Grandma had collected. Thomas Wright laid out the financial fraud in devastating detail. Even Brittany testified, revealing that Preston's family had paid her to seduce him and create scandal if needed. When it came time for Madison and me to testify, we held hands walking to the courthouse. "Whatever happens, we have each other," Madison said. "Always, I promised." My testimony was clinical, focusing on facts and evidence. But when the prosecutor asked how this had affected me, the emotions broke through. They didn't just steal money. They stole my trust. My grandmother's last gift to me wasn't just a house. It was a sanctuary, a place of healing after my divorce. They took that and turned it into something ugly, transactional. They made me question every happy memory, wondering if it was real or just another manipulation. Madison's testimony was even more powerful. The former pageant queen who'd been trained to always smile broke down completely. They raised me to be decorative and dependent. They convinced me my only value was in marrying well. When they knew Preston was cheating, they told me to be grateful for the opportunity to be used. They were willing to sell me into a miserable marriage for status. What kind of parents do that? Charlotte tried to catch our eyes from the defendant's table. Robert stared at his hands. Their defense was that they'd done everything for their daughter's benefit. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty on all counts: fraud, conspiracy, identity theft, money laundering. The sentencing would come later, but they were facing serious prison time. As the verdict was read, I felt something release in my chest. Not joy. There was no joy in watching your parents convicted, but there was relief. Justice. Closure. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Madison handled them with newfound confidence. "My sister and I want to thank everyone who supported us. Elder financial abuse is a serious crime that often goes unreported because families protect the abusers. We couldn't stay silent and let our grandmother's legacy be destroyed by greed." "What's next for you both?" a reporter asked. I stepped forward. Healing, rebuilding, and making sure our grandmother's real legacy, love, strength, and truth lives on. The lake house restoration took 2 months. Madison and I supervised every detail, making sure it was returned to exactly how Grandma had kept it. We found more of her hidden letters during the renovation, little notes of encouragement and love tucked in surprising places. One particularly hard day, when the workers were rebuilding the dock our parents had let Harold destroy, Madison found a note in a jar buried in the garden. "My dear girls, if you're reading this, you're at the lake house together. That's all I ever wanted, for you to find your way to each other. Sisters are the greatest gift, especially when parents fail. Take care of each other. Love, Grandma." We cried together there in the garden, surrounded by construction debris and hope. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for December, 3 days before what would have been Madison's wedding date. We debated attending, ultimately deciding we needed to be there. Charlotte had lost weight, her designer clothes replaced by a plain suit. Robert looked older, smaller, the bluster completely gone. When the judge allowed them to speak before sentencing, they both cried. "We lost ourselves," Charlotte said. "Somewhere along the way, greed became more important than our daughters. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but I'm sorry." Robert's statement was shorter. "I failed as a father. I failed as a man. I accept the consequences." Judge Morrison sentenced them to 5 years each, with possibility of parole in 3. They'd also have to pay full restitution, not that there was much left after legal fees and frozen assets. As the bailiffs led them away, Charlotte looked back at us. Madison gave a small nod. I managed a sad smile. Not forgiveness that would take years, if ever, but acknowledgement. They were going to prison, but they were still the people who'd raised us, however imperfectly. "It's over," Madison said as we left the courthouse for the last time. "No," I corrected. "It's just beginning." We drove straight to the lake house. Our lake house now legally and emotionally. The December sun was setting over the water, painting everything in gold and rose. "I've been thinking," Madison said as we sat on the rebuilt dock, "about what to do with my trust money." "Yeah. I want to go to college. Real college, not the party degree Mom and Dad pushed me into. I want to be a social worker, help kids in toxic families. That's amazing, Mad. What about you? I've been thinking too. What if we turned part of the property into a retreat center for women starting over divorce abuse fraud? A place to heal like Grandma wanted for us. Madison smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her in months. She'd love that. We sat in comfortable silence watching the sun set over the lake. Tomorrow there would be paperwork and planning and the hard work of building new lives. But tonight we were just two sisters who'd found their way back to each other. My phone buzzed. An unknown number, but I recognized the message style. This isn't over. The Ashworths always win. I showed Madison, who took my phone and threw it in the lake. Hey, I needed that. No, you don't. We're done with them. Done with threats, manipulation, lies. From now on, we only let in people who deserve us. She was right. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. Race you to the house, loser makes dinner. You're on. We ran up the path like we were kids again, like the children we'd never really gotten to be. Behind us, the lake held our secrets and our pain. Ahead, the house glowed with warmth and possibility. Grandma Helen had saved us after all, not with money or property, but by teaching us that sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. Each other. 1 year later, I stood on the same dock where Grandma Helen had taught me to fish, watching the sunrise paint the lake in shades of amber and rose. The morning was crisp early October, bringing that perfect New England chill that made you grateful for hot coffee and warm sweaters. So much had changed in 12 months. The house behind me was no longer just a restored memory, but a living, breathing sanctuary. The Serenity Lake Retreat had officially opened 6 months ago, and we'd already helped dozens of women restart their lives after financial abuse, domestic violence, or family betrayal. Madison emerged from the house carrying 2 steaming mugs, her nursing textbooks tucked under one arm. She'd started her social work degree but switched to nursing after volunteering at the retreat's wellness sessions. "Big day today," she said, handing me my coffee. "Are you ready?" I nodded, though my stomach fluttered. Today marked the 1-year anniversary of the verdict. We'd decided to host a gathering, not a celebration exactly, but an acknowledgement of how far we'd all come. Daniel confirmed he's bringing the projector for the presentation. Madison continued scrolling through her phone. And Marcus just texted that he's picking up the flowers. Marcus. Madison's Marcus. The carpenter who'd helped restore the house had become so much more over the months. He was nothing like Preston quiet, where Preston was flashy genuine, where Preston was false supportive, where Preston was controlling. Their relationship had bloomed slowly, built on mutual respect and shared work rather than status or wealth. "Speaking of Marcus," I said, noticing her fidgeting with her coffee mug, "are you going to tell me why you've been acting weird all week?" She blushed. "He wants to propose. I found the ring in his truck when I was looking for his measuring tape." "Madison, that's wonderful." "Is it after everything with Preston? I swore off marriage." Preston was a business transaction dressed up as love. Marcus is Marcus. He helped you study for your anatomy exams. He built that greenhouse so you could have fresh herbs for the retreat kitchen. He held your hand through Dad's first parole hearing. She smiled, soft and real. He did, didn't he? The parole hearing had been 2 months ago. Robert had shown genuine remorse, had completed every rehabilitation program offered. He'd been granted early release with strict conditions. Charlotte's hearing was next month. We'd received letters from both of them. Long, thoughtful letters that our therapists had helped us process. Apologies that felt real, acknowledgments of harm that went beyond surface remorse. We weren't ready for reconciliation, might never be, but we'd stopped actively hating them. That felt like progress. A car pulled up the driveway and Jennifer Martinez stepped out. She'd become more than our attorney over the years. She was a board member for the retreat and a trusted friend. "Morning, ladies. Ready for the circus." By noon, the property was bustling. The main house's great room had been transformed into a presentation space. 43 women who'd found refuge at Serenity Lake had returned for the day, along with the team of counselors, lawyers, and supporters who'd made it all possible. Margaret Chen, Grandma's attorney, sat in the front row beaming with pride. Thomas Wright chatted with Sarah Coleman from the bank's fraud department. She'd become an advocate for identity theft victims after our case. Even Amanda Reeves, the federal prosecutor, had come to see what we'd built with our second chance. I stood to welcome everyone, my notes forgotten, as I looked at the faces before me. A year ago, I thought my life was ending. My parents had betrayed me. My inheritance was stolen. My faith in family was shattered. But Grandma Helen knew something I didn't. Sometimes destruction clears the path for creation. Madison joined me at the podium. We created Serenity Lake because we needed what it offers: a place to heal without judgment, a community that understands betrayal by those who should protect you, a chance to rebuild on your own terms. We shared statistics. 43 women served 12 successful legal cases, supported $37,000 in emergency aid distributed. But the numbers didn't capture the real victories. Patricia finding the courage to report her son's elder abuse. Maria leaving her financially controlling husband. Sophie starting her own business after her family stole her first one. After the presentation, we gathered by the lake for a ceremony Madison had suggested. Each woman wrote something on biodegradable paper, a hurt to release, a person to forgive, a fear to overcome. One by one, we placed them in the water and watched them dissolve. I wrote 3 words: "I am enough," not despite what had happened, but because of how I'd chosen to respond. As the afternoon wound down, Daniel approached. We'd developed an unexpected friendship over the year, bonded by shared history and mutual respect. "I'm proud of you, Ev, both of you. You took something horrible and made it meaningful. We had help, including yours." He smiled. "That recording was just luck. This," he gestured to the retreat, the women laughing and healing, "this is purpose." The day's final surprise came at sunset. Marcus had indeed proposed right there on the dock where Grandma had taught us both to fish. Madison's yes echoed across the water, followed by cheers from everyone present. "We want to get married here," Madison announced, glowing with joy. "Next spring with just family, our chosen family, and the women of Serenity Lake." It was perfect. A wedding born from love, not transaction. A celebration, not a performance. As the guests departed and evening settled over the lake, Madison and I found ourselves alone on the porch swing Grandma had loved. "She knew, didn't she?" Madison mused. "Grandma knew we'd need to lose everything to find each other." She knew a lot of things, like hiding that trust fund clause, making us prove their theft to access it. She made sure we'd have to work together. "Sneaky old bird." We laughed, comfortable in the silence that followed. Inside, Marcus was cooking dinner, the scent of rosemary and garlic wafting through the screens. Tomorrow, 3 new women would arrive at the retreat, carrying their own stories of betrayal and hope. Next week, we'd break ground on the second healing cottage, funded by an anonymous donor who'd heard our story. "Do you think we'll ever fully forgive them?" Madison asked. "Mom and Dad?" "I don't know. Maybe forgiveness isn't the point. Maybe the point is that we didn't let their choices define our choices." "When did you get so wise?" "Somewhere between losing a lake house and gaining a sister." Madison reached for my hand. "Best trade ever?" My phone buzzed. For a moment, I tensed. Old habits die hard. But it was just a text from one of our retreat graduates, sharing a photo of her new apartment, her first safe space in years. "This is what Grandma really left us," I said, showing Madison the photo. "Not just money or property, but the ability to transform pain into purpose." As we headed inside for dinner, I paused at Grandma's portrait in the hallway. We'd restored it during renovations, her knowing smile now watching over all the women who found refuge here. "Thank you," I whispered. "For the house, for the lessons, for making sure we'd find our way back to each other." Maybe it was my imagination, but I could swear her painted eyes twinkled. That night, as I prepared for bed in the room that had once been Grandma's, I thought about the journey from that grocery store phone call to now, the theft, the betrayal, the courtroom battles they'd all led here to this moment of quiet triumph. My parents were serving their sentences, learning their own hard lessons. The Ashworths had retreated, their reputation damaged beyond repair. Preston was reportedly broke in Barcelona, abandoned by his family after too many scandals. Brittany had disappeared entirely after the trial. But we'd built something beautiful from the wreckage. Not just a retreat or a restored house, but a new definition of family. One based on choice, not chance. On loyalty, not blood. On truth, not manipulation. The last thing I did before turning out the light was check the retreat's email. 17 new inquiries from women needing help. 17 new chances to pay forward what Grandma Helen had given us. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Charlotte's parole hearing loomed. The retreat needed funding for expansion. Madison would plan a wedding while juggling nursing school. I'd balance running the retreat with my hospital shifts. But tonight, in the house that greed had stolen and love had reclaimed, everything was exactly as it should be. Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as the worst betrayals. Sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what you truly have. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get a grandmother wise enough to plan for your salvation even after she's gone. I fell asleep to the sound of loons on the lake, their haunting calls a reminder that some things endure despite every attempt to destroy them. Love, truth, justice, and sisters who refuse to let each other fall. Dear readers, has anyone in your life ever betrayed your trust in the name of family? How did you find the strength to rebuild? I'd love to hear your stories of resilience and redemption in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to hear more tales of triumph over adversity. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that even the deepest betrayals can't destroy an unbreakable spirit. Thank you for joining Evelyn and Madison on their journey from heartbreak to healing. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we're born into. Until next time, may you find your own Serenity Lake, wherever that may be.